Title card, baby. Let's go. Awesome. We did it. All right. So, first things first. The bottom center of the screen says that we've beaten 39 games in 2024 and 486 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are now outdated. We've now beaten 40 games. And oh, Jesus, not that many. Nope. There we go. 40 games in 2024 and 487 since we started doing this in 2020. Let's go. All right. Let's talk about the ups and downs of Tales of Kenzera Zal. So, positive things. The story is excellent. There are some twists and turns in it that I genuinely did not see coming. Multiple twists and turns, some very cool moments. It's well acted, it's well voiced, it's well, the art direction is, it's not entirely unique, but it's got this like African vibe to it that you don't see in a lot of video games, and it looked really cool. So I liked the art direction. I liked the whole look of it. It was well animated, all that stuff. That was all great. I thought the boss fights were decent, very, very good. The boss fights were all, they weren't perfect, but they were all solid. There aren't that many, but that's okay. It's kind of a short Metroidvania, and it had a reasonable number of boss fights for its length, and they were well paced. Like, they were kind of put evenly throughout. They made sense in the context of the story. They were fun. They were challenging without being unreasonable. So I thought the boss fights were pretty good, and that's always really important to me. I think that's it for that's the main stuff. And the traversal mechanics that you unlock as the game goes on, they did a good job of thinking outside of the box. A lot of Metroidvanias, even some of the best ones, the first thing you unlock is a double jump, and then the next thing you unlock is a jump dash, and then the third thing you unlock is a wall jump. You know, they give you all that at the outset. You get all that stuff right at the beginning. You get a double jump, you get a wall jump, you get a dash. You don't have to unlock any of that crap. The stuff that you're unlocking is like cool, like whiplash kind of like grappling stuff, and it's beyond that. You know, it's a special, extra special, bigger dash that can break things, and you get the unlockable traversal mechanics are cool. They don't work properly all the time. We'll get to that in a second, but they are cool. They're fun to use. They're unique. They're out of the box. It's not just your basic crap. The unlockable traversal mechanics were a lot of fun. I enjoyed those. All right, now let's talk about some of the issues. Before I get into this, I just want to say that I think overall this game is pretty good. I've played some Metroidvanias that have blown my mind, like Hollow Knight. This is not on that level. And I've played some Metroidvanias, especially lately, that are piss poor awful. This is not one of those either. This is not The Last Case of Benedict Fox. This is not Ultros. This is there have been some Metroidvanias that I think were freaking terrible. This is not anywhere near that either. I'd say it's in the middle, closer to the good than the bad, you know. But there are some issues with it. The controls are wonky. It's one of those games, and if you're not going to know what I'm talking about unless you played a lot of games. But there are some games where the controls are finicky as to when you push buttons, whether you hold them down and pick them back up. You have to do everything just right. So, for instance, there's a dash in this game that you unlock pretty late, and you have to hold the left trigger and B to use it. And you can't hit them at the same time. You can't hit one right after the other in a tenth of a second. It's got to be a very deliberate in a very specifically timed way, or it just won't trigger. And that's one example of many. There's a lot of things where it's like, if you don't hit the controls, if you don't in a very specific rhythm, it just won't work. It's just really clunky. It's clumsy. It's very finicky. And in a game with a lot of precision platforming in it, it's very hard to be precise when the controls are so finicky. You've got to do it just right, or it will not work. So that's a big problem. That was an issue throughout the game. Also, kind of on that note, the platforming is not very precise either. The way that Kenzera moves, you can't really interrupt a dash. You can't, if a certain moves will cause you to move forward, a certain melee moves will cause you to move forward a certain amount, and there's nothing you can do to control it. So there's a lot of frustration with like doing a move and just flying off of the edge of a cliff or into some lava. This game, like a lot of Metroidvanias for some reason, has a lot of insta-kill shit in it. There's a lot of insta-kill spikes, falling into lava, falling into spikes, falling off of cliffs, falling into water. There's a lot of that insta-kill crap, which is fine, I guess, because it's kind of part of Metroidvanias. But when you have very little control over where your person is landing, it can be very frustrating. And when you're already dealing with the finicky controls, and then like it does this thing where if you land right on the edge of a platform, it just kind of does that thing where you kind of hit it for a second, and then you fall off into the lava or whatever. So it's just kind of it clips out, you know. Or if you hit it just one pixel further, then it does this whole animation where it like ledge grabs, where you flip over and then you move a certain amount forward because of that. Maybe you don't want to do that, and it takes a second too. So if you're trying to outrun something, there's a lot of chase sequences in this game, which were fun, by the way. I really like the chasing. We'll put that on the positive things. The chase sequences are really cool. It's kind of like if you played Ori, there's a lot of chase sequences like that, and they're fun. But the controls being as imprecise and finicky as they are makes it really frustrating sometimes, because you have to land right on the platform, and when the platform is really floaty, very finicky, very very apt to like do the ledge grab animation and then throw you off into some lava or whatever. It's frustrating. The controls they're not bad. I've played worse, but they're not great. They're really, really particular about when you hit buttons. Oh, also, this is a bug. The game does this thing but it's in the category of controls. The game does this thing where if you hit start, if you go to the pause menu, and you're holding down a button, most games, if you're holding down the jump button in the pause menu, and then you exit out of the pause menu, you will do that animation. You'll jump or you'll glide or whatever you're supposed to do. Jump's not a good example, but like if you're trying to hover, like if you're using Link's Breath of the Wild and you're using his paraglider, and you kind of hit the button to glide the same time you hit the pause menu to get out of the pause, you should be gliding. This game doesn't do that. And it's a really specific thing, and again, it's something you're not going to pick up on unless you played a lot of games. But if you're holding the left analog stick to walk forward as you unpause, the game just will not register that you're moving left or right. So you have to stop everything, take every hand off of every button on the controller for a second, so the game registers, okay, we're not touching anything, and then you can move forward. It was highly annoying. It's just one of those things that it's hard to explain unless you've played a lot of games or you've experienced that problem for yourself. But this game, you will notice it if you're playing this. It's really annoying every time you exit out of the pause menu, which you're going to be doing a lot because there's a lot of map checking in any Metroidvania, so you're switching in and out of the menu all the time. You gotta let go of everything other than the exit button, the start button, and then you can start moving again. Otherwise, the game won't register whatever you're pushing. That was annoying. And there were some bugs. It's kind of standard launch stuff. I fell through the map at one point and ended up in a much earlier part of the game. And it took me a while to get back. That sucked. I just fell right through the floor. It was very clearly not supposed to happen. That happened twice. The way that the dash jump and some of the moves you could get stuck on a ledge, and it would you would just get stuck there, and then you would eventually just die because the lava would come up. This usually happened during chase sequences. So there were a couple of bugs like that. Oh, also one other thing. This is actually kind of important. The level design is not great all the time. it's hard to explain this, but very specifically in Metroidvanias, there are lots of times where you have to go into an area to get an ability, and then you leave. And most of the time, those areas are designed in a circle, so that when you get to the end, you're back to where you started, and you don't have to walk through the whole area again. Or there's a fast travel point at the end, so you don't have to go back all the way through the area again to get out, when it took you 30 minutes to get down there. That's pretty standard Metroidvania level design stuff. This game several times does this thing where the key or ability or whatever you need is down a long pathway that is just a dead end with no fast travel at the end. And so when you get the ability, you have to hike all the way back through what you just did with no fast travel, and all the enemies are gone because you've killed, if you've killed them on the way. So you're just going through the same thing. It's not fun at all. It's real dumb, and it could easily be fixed by either just designing them more circular, which the game does sometimes. It's just at certain points it just doesn't. I don't understand why. Or you put a fast travel point at the end, so you can go back. And speaking of so the level design in this game is not ideal. It's not great. There's a lot of dead ends that you have to go back through a bunch of crap that you just did. I recognize that there's a lot of circling back in Metroidvanias. I get that. But there's actually not that much in this game. And so when it does come up, it's like they didn't think about it. Like if you want to go back to something you have already explored, like an area, it is a pain in the ass. And part of that's because of the fast travel. We'll talk about it in a second. But the second reason, and the bigger reason, is because the way that the levels are designed is very linear stuff. It's not as interconnected as a lot of Metroidvanias are. So it just takes forever to get from one end of a zone to another. And just the way that it's designed is just, it's just like it's not considerate of your time. You have to go through a lot of areas. Like, usually when Metroidvanias want you to go, design it to where you have to go through an area again, there's shit to do. Like, there's new enemies or the same enemies, or you have different things that you can unlock, like, get through now. That doesn't really happen a lot in this game. You're just walking through an area again, dashing through it, trying to get through as fast as you can, because you've done everything there already. There's nothing new to do. That happens several times. And then the fast travel points... It's like they just threw darts on the map for where the fast travel points are. There are a couple that make sense because they're at big junction areas or major hubs or whatever. But most of them are like, if you're in the zone and like the entrance and exits are here at the top corners, the fast travel will be like way down here. So if you want to, let's say there's something in that zone that you want to go back and get because you have some new ability or something, you got to fast travel way down deep into the level and then go way out of your way to just get to what you wanted to get to. Or if you're just trying to get, like, you have to backtrack because you finish whatever you've done in the area and you're trying to get back to the main area, like more of the center of the map, you've got the fast travel point. You just have to see them on the map. They don't make any sense, most of them. It's like they threw darts on a map to where the fast travel points are. There are whole areas that just don't have a single fast travel. There are areas that have multiple close together that don't make any sense. And then the ones that aren't bunched up or when the ones they do have, they're way deep, buried down in the level. And it's like it doesn't even make sense to fast travel because it's not any closer than where you're coming from. So the fast travel points, there aren't enough of them. And the ones that they have, I almost never used fast travel because it almost made sense. It almost always just made sense to walk. There is less backtracking in this game than most Metroidvanias, but still, like, it comes up sometimes. And so fast traveling was just too much of a pain usually to bother with. It's just not worth going back and get. The game's challenging, but not because you need to grind out abilities or whatever. It's challenging just because the combat's finicky, So, but all that stuff being said, all those little problems aside, the game is ultimately a pretty good game especially for an indie title. I know they have EA money because they published or whatever, but for an indie game, Metroidvania, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's fairly polished, It's got a great story and animation. It's well put together for the most part. The combat's pretty fun. Although it's not, it's finicky, but it's pretty good. The boss fights are great. There's a lot of good stuff to like here. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot more than bad stuff. So there were a lot of specific problems with this game, but overall, the combat, the world, the story, and the boss fights made it all easily worth it. I did really, I think I paid $17.99 for this game. Easily worth $17.99. Definitely worth the money. And I did ultimately really enjoy it. And I'm glad that I got to it. All right, that's it. Tales of Kenzera Zao is in the book. Last order of business. Tales of Kenzera Zao. It's been fun, but we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye. Thank you. Appreciate ya.